I have counted the raiders 3 times since the alarm started, and I keep losing count in the same place, because that is where the smoke gets into the corridor, and I cannot see past my own hand. My name is Vesil Katra. I load cargo at Halvern Yard, a refueling station stitched together out of 3 dead ships, and one very stubborn human idea, and none of what I am about to tell you was in my job description. The humans built her in the old ballast bay, behind a door that said no entry, in 3 alphabets, and 1 pictograph of a skull that nobody on this station had the heart to explain to the children. Dr. Renata Aldous ran the project. She was thin in the way that people get when they forget to eat on purpose, and she had a technician named Priya who did the actual sleeping for both of them. They called what they were building a combat frame. Officially, it was Unit 9. Unofficially, before she ever opened her eyes, the dockhands were already calling her the Scalpel, because Aldous kept saying the word precision like it was a prayer. I was afraid of her before I met her. I want to be honest about that, because everything that came after only means something if you understand where I started. The Skarn Combine had hit 2 convoys that season and left nothing alive that could talk about it, and Halvern Yard did not have enough hulls or enough hands to stop a 3rd. So the humans built something that would not get tired, would not hesitate, and would not, as Aldous put it in a briefing I was not supposed to be in the room for, carry the weight afterward. I heard that and thought, they have built a knife that feels nothing when it cuts. I did not want to be on the same station as a knife like that, let alone load cargo 20 meters from where it slept. There were other rumors, the kind that grow in a station with too little to do between shifts and too much fear to sit with quietly. Someone said the frame had no face, only a smooth plate where a face should be. Someone else swore she had been grown from the tissue of station personnel who hadn't survived the 2nd raid, which was cruel and untrue and repeated anyway, because cruelty travels faster than correction. Priya put a stop to that one personally, cornering the dockhand who'd started it in the galley and making him repeat, word for word, exactly where the story had come from, until he had nowhere left to stand on it. I liked Priya for that, though I never told her so. She was the only one of the 2 of them who still ate meals at station hours, still asked after people's names, still remembered that I had a sister working the far ring, even though I'd only mentioned it once, in passing, months before. I only saw 9 once before the raid, through the narrow observation slit the yard's chief engineer had cut into the ballast bay door against Aldous's wishes. She was seated on a low bench, perfectly still, while Priya ran a cable from the base of her skull to a diagnostic panel. She did not look like a weapon. She looked like someone waiting for a bus that was already late, patient, in a way that unsettled me more than menace would have. I did not linger. I told myself I had cargo to load, which was true, and that I did not want to know more about her, which was not. The raid came on a Thursday, which meant nothing to the Skarn, but meant everything to me, because Thursday was the day I did not wear my boots properly laced. I always meant to fix it before my shift. I never did. My left lace had been dragging loose for 2 days, catching under my heel, and I had told myself a dozen times that it would get me killed one day. In the offhand way you tell yourself things you don't believe. The Skarn came in low, 3 raider skiffs skimming the outer ring before anyone got a shot off, and then the yard was full of noise and orange emergency light and people running in directions that made no sense until you were running in them yourself. I went for the cargo hold, because that was the drill. Because if the hold breached, we would lose 4 months of refugee rations in 90 seconds. I was halfway across the connector bridge when Unit 9 came through the bulkhead doors at a dead run, and I remember thinking, with the strange clarity that fear sometimes gives you, that she moved like something built rather than born. Economical, unhurried even at speed, the way water finds the fastest way downhill without ever seeming to try. She put down 2 raiders before I had crossed the bridge. I did not see how. I saw the after. One folded against the wall like a coat someone had set down, the other simply not standing anymore. I remember bracing for the 3rd thing, the report, the moment where the knife turns and asks who else needs cutting. Instead, she stopped in the middle of the corridor, dropped to one knee in front of me, and reached for my foot. I did not understand what was happening. I thought, absurdly, that I had been hit and hadn't noticed. But she had my loose lace in both hands, and she was retying it, not fast, not the way you'd expect from something built to end a war in under a second, but carefully, the way you'd tie a child's shoe before sending them out into weather. She looped it twice and pulled it snug and looped it again, a second knot laid flat over the first, so it would not work itself loose no matter how hard I ran, and she said, without looking up, "You'll trip on the stairwell tread on deck 2. It's bent up half an inch. I logged it 3 days ago and no one's fixed it." Then she stood, and the corridor filled with a third raider's shadow behind her, and she turned and put him down too, and it was over in less time than it took me to find my voice. I did not run to the cargo hold. I stood in that corridor with my hands shaking, and my lace double-knotted so tight it would leave a mark on my ankle for a week. And I understood that I had built the wrong picture of her entirely. Aldous had wanted something that would not carry the weight afterward. What she had actually built carried everything. The loose stairwell tread, the bad seam in my boot, the 90 seconds before the hold breached, and did not let any of it slow her down. She had time, in the middle of dying men and breaching hulls, to notice that a stranger was about to trip. The scarn broke off before their fourth skiff even cleared the ring. We lost no rations, no hull integrity, and, for the first time in 3 raids, no people. 9 stood afterward in the wreckage of the connector bridge, with raider blood drying on hands that a lab had grown to be precise rather than kind, and nobody quite knew what to say to her, least of all Aldous, who kept starting sentences about debriefs and diagnostics, and not finishing them. Halvern Yard never did grant her station status. There was a form for it, and a committee, and the committee decided a combat frame did not meet the criteria for personhood, no matter how many raiders it had kept off the ration stores, and I think Aldous fought that decision harder than anyone knew, and lost anyway. I heard she submitted the petition 3 separate times, each with more signatures attached, and each time it came back with the same 3 lines of denial, unchanged down to the punctuation, as if no one on the committee had even reread it before stamping it flat. 9 did not seem surprised. She went back behind the door with the skull nobody explained to the children, and for a while, that was the whole of it. I thought about the form more than I let on. I have loaded cargo at 3 stations in my working life, and I have seen a great many things get classified by people who never had to stand in the corridor when the classifying mattered. It struck me, turning it over on my own bunk at night, that the committee had asked whether she could think, and had never once asked whether she noticed. Those seemed to me like very different questions, and only one of them had saved my life on a Thursday. But the mess hall has a rule, unwritten but absolute, that non-station personnel eat under escort. Nobody had to say anything the week after the raid. 9 walked in alone, sat at the end of the long table where the dockhands eat, and nobody moved to escort her out. I sat down across from her without deciding to. She had grease on one knuckle from something she'd been repairing, and she was looking at the loose thread on my sleeve like she wanted to fix that too. I never thanked her properly. I am not sure the words exist in either of our languages for what that knot on my boot meant, tied in the middle of a fight for both our lives, by someone the paperwork still refuses to call a person. But I wear my laces tight now, always, the way she taught me, and every time I bend to tie them, I think of the stairwell tread on deck 2, which someone finally fixed, 3 weeks late, and which she had noticed first.